He was accused of a murder he did not commit and sent to a place from which no one returns, a place where even the strongest crumble, and hope is the most dangerous illusion. The movie is Papillon. Henri Charrière, a professional safecracker nicknamed Papillon, pulls off another heist orchestrated by the crime boss Castilli. Finishing the job, he goes to his boss to split the loot and admits he kept a few gems for himself. Castilli allows him to keep his cut, but warns him never to cross him. Before letting Henri go, Castilli points out Roland Legrand, a pimp who snitched on them to the police. Meeting with Nanette, a dancer at Castilli's establishment, Henri gives her a necklace and asks her to take the night off, though a guard stepping into the courtyard notices the jewelry in her hands. She dreams of moving out of the city, buying a house, and starting a quiet life together. Henri asks her to wait just 6 more months to save up enough money. The next morning, police burst into his apartment, arresting him for the murder of Roland Legrand, refusing to believe he spent the entire evening with Nanette. Sometime later, she visits Henri in prison, unable to process his life sentence. He tells her to forget him, knowing that an escape attempt could take years. Their conversation is overheard by Jean, who advises Henri to secure money if he plans to break out. During a medical inspection, Jean points out Louis Dega, a millionaire convicted of forging government bonds. Everyone knows he is wealthy, making him a prime target for inmates desperate to get their hands on his hidden cash. The prisoners are shipped off to serve their sentences in South America. On board the vessel the very next day, Henri quickly realizes that Louis comes from a completely different world and stands little chance of surviving these harsh conditions. He offers to stay close and guarantee protection in exchange for money, though Louis chooses to stick near the guards instead. That night, Louis gets lucky. The attackers target his cellmate instead, cutting out a money capsule from his body. The sight terrifies Louis, while the guard, taking his cut of the money, simply orders the body of the killed inmate to be disposed of. The next morning, Louis admits he has reconsidered Henri's proposal and is ready to fund an escape, provided Henri keeps him alive until they reach the island. However, Louis has no intention of escaping himself, counting on his wife to secure an appeal. Henri keeps his word. That night, when a capsule hunter moves toward Louis, Henri lunges at the brute and barely manages to overpower him before guards break up the brawl using steam. From his bruised knuckles, officials quickly identify who was involved in the fight, and Henri receives his punishment. Soon the prisoners arrive in South America, and Jean decides to get himself sent to the infirmary by staging an accident. Under heavy guard, they are marched through the jungle until reaching the prison, where the warden remains convinced that every inmate dreams of escape. However, he warns that to succeed, they would have to conquer both the jungle and an ocean teeming with sharks. He cautions that a first failed escape attempt results in 2 years of solitary confinement, while a second attempt brings 5 years and exile to Devil's Island. Afterward, the prisoners are dispersed to their barracks. Learning who manages job assignments, Henri offers 1,000 francs to get them placed in the infirmary. Shots ring out during the night, signaling that someone has fled into the jungle, and Henri suspects it was Jean. However, the infirmary plan collapses when the deputy warden recognizes Louis, whose bond forgeries landed his sister's husband behind bars, and orders them sent to the labor camp instead. Following a shift, Henri tries to make Louis realize that he should not count on his wife's help, as she now controls his fortune. Louis's body fails to withstand the brutal conditions, and a sudden bout of diarrhea causes him to lose his money capsule. Realizing what happened, Henri searches frantically and finds it beneath the cart tracks, though his actions draw the attention of other inmates. Grasping what is at stake, one of the convicts demands that Louis hand over the capsule, but Henri once again makes it clear that he will let no one touch their money. A guard's gunshot breaks up the brawl, though it becomes clear that it only delayed the inevitable. On their way back to the prison, the convicts encounter a local guide whose wagon is stuck in the mud. While helping him pull it out, Henri seizes the moment to ask if he has a boat. The guide replies that he will remain in the area for 3 more days and is willing to assist with an escape if Henri can provide 5,000 francs. In the showers, the same inmate who had demanded Louis' money the day before attacks them along with 2 accomplices. Once again, Henri prevails, proving himself an experienced fighter. Despite sustaining a minor wound, he manages to fend off the attackers. By evening, Louis finally accepts that if things continue like this, he may not live to see his appeal, and begs Henri to take him along if he decides to break out. The next morning, as the inmates are cleared from the barracks, news breaks that Jean failed to escape. During his attempt, he killed a guard and has now been sentenced to death by guillotine. Following the execution, the warden orders Henri to choose an assistant to help carry the body outside the compound walls, and he selects Louis. Before long, Louis realizes he is covered in Jean's blood. For a man accustomed to a life of wealth, the sight causes a profound shock, so severe that he freezes in place, unable to move or process the guard's orders to return to work. Infuriated, the guard loses his temper and begins beating Louis with a belt. Unable to watch the brutality, Henri strikes the guard over the head with a stone. Realizing there is no turning back, he acts on instinct. Henri flees into the woods, and reaching the river, dives into the water under a hail of gunfire from his pursuers, who fail to hit him. By evening, he makes it to the guide's camp and pleads for help, promising to pay everything he has once he gets back to Paris. However, the guide rejects the offer, arguing that France is far too distant, whereas the prison commander is ready to pay for the fugitive's capture right now. Henri gets lucky that the guard survives the blow, so the warden orders his transfer to St. Joseph Island, where he is to serve 2 years in solitary confinement. This place is designed specifically for those who refuse to give up hope and still believe in the possibility of escape. Here, complete silence is enforced to break a prisoner's will and drain them of all hope. The first few days pass relatively easily as he tries to keep his mind occupied, constantly returning to memories of happier times when he still believed in a future, with only the meager food dampening his spirits in isolation. One day he is visited by the very guard he struck before fleeing. Knocking Henri to the floor, the guard forbids him from looking up, but the prisoner's entire demeanor shows he remains unbroken. After landing a few more blows, the guard steps out of the cell, concluding that Henri has lost his mind. During a routine meal, Henri finds half a coconut accompanied by a note from Louis, who promises to send one every day. This support revitalizes his strength, allowing him to start working out and stay in shape. Before long, however, one of the guards discovers the contraband, and while trying to interrogate the food server about who is paying him, accidentally kills him. The warden soon enters the cell, demanding the name of the person providing Henri with coconuts. When Henri remains silent, the warden orders his rations cut in half. Over time, Henri loses track of days, unable to tell how much time he has spent in this place. When the warden returns with an offer to improve his conditions in exchange for the name, Henri stays silent once again. Despite everything, Papillon refuses to yield, forcing himself to adapt to the silence while constantly anchoring his mind to the past. When the 2 years finally expire, Louis learns that Henri is in the infirmary and comes to visit, begging for forgiveness over what happened. He admits that Henri was right all along. His wife did indeed abandon him and married his lawyer. After listening to him, Henri reveals that he is merely pretending to have lost his mind, biding his time for the right moment. Louis then shares that on Sunday, the warden is organizing a film screening for local politicians, which will draw away much of the guard force. Charrière has already secured a boat and is also awaiting the ideal opportunity. Continuing to fake insanity, Henri demands that Louis leave, effectively convincing everyone around that he has not yet recovered. Noticing a guard harassing a newcomer, Henri approaches the young man, Maître, telling him of his plan to break out and offering to take him along if he can create a distraction at the right moment. Maître agrees. The following day, all the co-conspirators gather in the infirmary yard, where Charrière confirms he found a boat that requires payment. When Sunday arrives, the warden greets his guests, and Maître executes his part of the plan, drawing the guard's attention away. At the same time, Louis serves the guests while Charrière and Henri wrap bed legs with sheets to avoid unnecessary fatalities. Waiting for the right moment, they overpower the guards, trying to act as quietly as possible. However, the warden is in no rush to dismiss Louis. Suddenly, a heavy downpour forces the guests inside, and damage to the power line plunges the entire prison complex into darkness. Taking advantage of the blackout, Louis escapes the warden's company, secures the necessary keys, and returns to free the others. Under the cover of darkness, they slip out of the building and reach the guard walkways. Waiting until the guards are out of sight, they climb down the wall one by one, though Louis breaks his leg during the drop. Charrière insists they abandon Louis, but Henri refuses, reminding him that Louis holds all their money. Their absence goes unnoticed, allowing the escapees to reach the jungle, where they are confronted by local bounty hunters. Charrière explains that these very men were supposed to provide the boat. Handing over the remaining cash that Louis managed to save, the fugitives finally receive the vessel. Crossing the river, they push out into the open ocean. For the first time in years, they breathe the air of freedom. But joy quickly turns to anxiety as the boat constantly takes on water and barely supports all four of them. Seeing this, Charrière suggests getting rid of Louis, but Henri immediately makes it clear that he will not allow anyone to die. The tension eases temporarily, but as a storm approaches, Charrière returns to the idea, insisting the boat cannot take the extra weight. He asks Henri not to step in and tries to sway Maîtrette to his side, but Maîtrette suddenly turns on him, giving Henri a chance to take the initiative. Still, Charrière proves too strong, and the upper hand gradually shifts in his favor during the fight. He is on the verge of drowning Henri when Louis, gathering his strength, reaches for a knife and strikes the attacker in the back multiple times. With only 3 left in the boat, they cast Charrière's body overboard and attempt to push forward, but a hurricane soon engulfs them. Waking up, Henri finds himself inside a hut, unsure of where he is. Stepping outside, he meets a nun who reveals that they are in Colombia and that she knows their true identities. She urges them to repent, but Henri realizes he cannot stay. He shares his intent to move on with Louis, who cannot travel further due to his broken leg, while Maîtrette feels content remaining behind. Heading down the road, Henri hears an engine, and realizing guards are arriving for them, rushes back to warn Louis. The moment he reaches the settlement, Maîtrette is killed, and both Henri and Louis are taken into custody once again. 5 years later, Henri emerges from solitary confinement. Astonished that he managed to survive, the warden announces his transfer to Devil's Island. Upon arrival, he is met by inmates whose appearances make it clear that many have lost their minds. Yet what surprises Henri most is finding Louis, who explains that he was sent directly to this island for disobedience. Despite every setback that has plagued his journey toward freedom, Henri refuses to abandon the thought of escape and tries to determine if there is any path to the ocean. Louis shows him that access to the water is unguarded, but jumping from such a height almost certainly means death, and even with a lucky landing, the harsh ocean currents offer virtually no chance of survival. Observing the waves, he notices a current circulating around the island and concludes that if he builds a raft and times it just right, the water itself will carry him toward the mainland. They begin preparations, constructing a simple raft, and head to the cliffs the following day. Upon reaching the edge, however, Louis unexpectedly reveals that he must remain behind, urging Henri to leave the island without him. After saying goodbye to the man who stood by him through every trial, Henri tosses the raft down and, gathering his strength, leaps off the cliff right behind it. For a few moments, he fails to resurface, leading Louis to believe he has perished. Shortly after, though, Henri's voice echoes from below, calling out his name. He has managed to survive the drop, and climbing onto the raft, Henri surrenders to the current, which carries him far away from the island. In 1969, Venezuelan citizen Henri Charrière returns to France and asks a journalist to share the story of his escape. For 21 weeks, his autobiographical novel Papillon remains the country's top bestseller. The very next year, the Minister of Justice signs a decree allowing him to return to his homeland, where he spends the rest of his life as a free man. Meanwhile, the penal colony in French Guiana ceases to exist within his lifetime. Papillon is not just a story of escaping the world's most brutal penal system, but a true anthem to the unbroken human will. Where the system extinguished all hope and broke even the strongest, Henri Charrière proved that as long as a person refuses to surrender, their spirit remains free.